Hello there, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Al24 News, streaming live from the capital Algiers, and coming up next in our news program. Ukrainian forces were reinforcing defenses in key cities Wednesday as Russia's advance paused amid fierce resistance in some areas. A humanitarian corridor right out of the besieged Ukraine city of Sumy will continue to function on Wednesday, Regional Governor Dmitry said. The number of refugees pouring from Ukraine into Europe is expected to be 3 times larger than those who fled Syria for the continent in 2015-2016, the EU's Foreign Affairs chief has warned. Russia's key energy exports are facing U.S. sanctions, with President Joe Biden announcing that the United States would no longer import Russian oil. Hello again and welcome. Those were today's headlines. We started with the latest updates in the Ukrainian crisis after the Russian military operation. An alert was declared Wednesday morning in and around Kiev, with residents urged to get to bomb shelters as quickly as possible. Russian President Vladimir Putin has signed a decree prohibiting the import of exports of certain products and raw materials. A list of affected countries will be drawn up in the coming days. At least 1.33 million people have arrived in Poland from Ukraine since Russia launched its military operation. Poland's embassy to the European Union tweeted Wednesday, citing figures from the country's border guard agency. Russia announced plans for a new ceasefire Wednesday to allow civilians to leave several parts of Ukraine besieged by Russian forces, a day after thousands of people were able to leave the city in northeastern Ukraine, while Ukrainian officials accused Russia of shelling another evacuation route in the southern part of the country. Russia said Wednesday ceasefire would allow people to leave Kiev, Chernihiv, Sumy, Kharkiv, and Mariupol. Ukrainian Deputy Prime Minister Iran Vershok said 5,000 people were able to evacuate Sumy on Tuesday.
It should not need saying that health workers, hospitals, and other medical facilities must never be a target at any time, including during crises and conflicts. To date, we have 16 confirmed reports of attacks on health in Ukraine, and more are being verified. WHO strongly condemns these attacks on healthcare services.
British Prime Minister said that the United Kingdom will move away from dependence on Russian oil by the end of 2022. Let's have a listen.
This year, we can replace 100 BCM of gas imports from Russia. That is 2/3 of what we import from them. This will end our over-dependency and give us much-needed room to maneuver. 2/3. It's hard, bloody hard, but it's possible if we're willing to go further and faster than we've done before.
In another step from the West in its series of sanctions against Moscow, U.S. President Joe Biden, the United States, is banning Russian oil, natural gas, and coal imports to the U.S., a step that he warned could lead to a spike in gas prices at home. Nabil Khazini on what follow.
The Russian energy imports will no longer be received in the United States. Joe Biden announced his administration is banning Russian oil, natural gas, and coal imports to the United States.
Today, I'm announcing the United States is targeting the main artery of Russia's economy. We're banning all imports of Russian oil and gas and energy.
American motorists were already paying high pump prices, and this decision will make bills go even costlier. Joe Biden knows that.
When I first spoke to this, I said defending freedom is going to cost. It's going to cost us as well in the United States.
The United Kingdom, shortly afterwards, announced it will phase out imports of Russian oil and oil products by the end of this year, giving itself a time to find alternatives.
The UK will phase out the import of Russian oil and oil products by the end of 2022. This transition will give the market, businesses and supply chains more than enough time to replace Russian imports, which make up 8% of UK demand.
While British oil giant Shell announced on Tuesday its intention to withdraw from Russian oil and gas gradually to align with new directives from the British government. But unlike the European Union, both the United States and the United Kingdom do not depend heavily on Russian energy. Russia accounts for just 7% of the oil imported by the world's biggest economy, while 3/5 of Russia's oil exports go to the EU.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called for more Western action against Moscow as Russian advance continues. Let's have a listen to his speech.
If the situation gets worse, then new sanctions need to be introduced to bring peace, boycotting Russia exports and embargo on oil from Russia. They refused to give money to terrorists if they didn't want to stick to civilized rules, and they can get their benefit from the war if they want to. If somebody loses their mind, then we need to lose fear and forget about commerce and business. We need to fight against inhuman evil that wants to destroy the humanity itself. Spirit of Ukrainian nation and strict sanctions from the world. These are the steps that we need to take.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson held a press conference in London with his Canadian and Dutch counterparts, Justin Trudeau and Mark Rutte, after the leaders discussed their response to Russia's military operation in Ukraine. Johnson announced an additional £175 million in aid for Ukraine, while Trudeau announced new sanctions against 10 military operation collaborators, senior government official and oligarch. Let's have a listen.
Could you elaborate all perhaps a bit?
This is the moment for Ukraine's friends to create a coalition of humanitarian, economic and defensive military support to ensure that Putin fails. And that's why today I'm announcing a further £175 million of UK aid for Ukraine, $100 million of which will be provided directly to the Ukrainian government. After 12 days, it's already clear that Putin has made a miscalculation. He has underestimated the Ukrainians, their heroic resistance. He's underestimated their leader. And he has underestimated the unity of the West. And we will continue as colleagues to do everything we can to strengthen that unity in the days ahead to ensure that Putin fails in this catastrophic invasion of Ukraine.
The work we're doing together is punishing Putin and his enablers where it hurts most, in particular by crippling their financial systems and sanctioning their central bank.
In same line of thought, and according to Ukrainian officials, an attempt to evacuate civilians from the shelled port of Mariupol and deliver food, water and medicine was thrown into jeopardy Tuesday by what Ukraine said was continued shelling by Russian forces as conditions inside the strategic city of 430,000 grew more desperate, or rather desperate. Corpses blocked the streets of Mariupol, where besieged residents have increasingly turned to breaking into stores to try to feed themselves. People got water from streams or melting snow. Russia's special military operation in Ukraine has prompted a massive humanitarian crisis with mounting military and civilian casualties and more than 2 million people on the move to escape this violence. Miriam Zian on Watch Follow.
The humanitarian crisis in Ukraine is escalating as Vladimir Putin's military operation nears 2 weeks. Tens of thousands of Ukrainians are without food, water, or power. The UN has warned that Russia's military operation has triggered a fast-growing refugee crisis in Europe since World War II, with more than 1.7 million people fleeing the conflict. UN refugee chief says the number of people fleeing has reached 2 million. In response to the immense health needs, the Ministry of Health says more than 400,000 tons of medical supplies have been delivered to Ukraine by neighboring governments, the WHO and UNICEF. While the World Food Programme projects an exponential rise in food insecurity across all oblasts of Ukraine. EU Home Affairs Commissioner is concerned that unaccompanied children are being trafficked, as the Commission unveils new proposals to help refugees.
We need to provide more help for the children, and we also need to be aware that there are also people, criminals, that try to use this situation. There's a huge risk of unaccompanied children being victims of trafficking.
Although the UN reports that 747 people, including 17 children, have died as a result of the operation, the exact extent of the human cost is unknown at this time.
Today is the 40th day of the Russian military operation in Ukraine. Russian troops have made significant advance in the country. This map shows Russian forces continued concentrating in the eastern, northwestern and western outskirts of Kiev for an advance in the capital in the coming 24 hours or 96. Natalia Modorenko, the highest-ranking woman at Ukraine's UN mission, says that the critical situation in Mariupol and other cities demands an immediate action by the world leaders and humanitarian and medical organizations. Let's have a listen.
In Mykolaiv region, the Russian occupiers fight at a van with a group of female teachers of the local orphanage. 3 of them were killed today. There are cases of sexual violence committed by occupiers. All arrangements on humanitarian corridors are being undermined by the Russians. For instance, in Mariupol, the Ukrainian forces removed mines and roadblocks to ensure evacuation on previously agreed route. The Russian forces immediately shelled and attempt to attack through this route. All above constitute war crimes and crimes against humanity. The justice will be served sooner or later in relation to all who ordered, committed and whitewashed these crimes.
Britain unveiled on Wednesday new aviation sanctions, giving it the power to detain any Russian aircraft and banning exports of aviation or space-related goods to Russia. Britain will also strengthen its ban on Russian aircraft, making it a criminal offense for any to fly or land in the United Kingdom. Moscow has talked up fears of an energy war by threatening to close a major gas pipeline to Germany after the US pushed its European allies to consider banning Russian oil imports over its military operation in Ukraine. In an address on Russian state television, Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak said, quote, "A rejection of Russian oil would lead to catastrophic consequences for the global market," and claimed that the price of oil could rise to more than $300 for a barrel. Novak cited Germany's decision last month to halt the certification of Nord Stream 2 secondary pipeline, saying that, quote, "We have every right to take matching decision and impose an embargo on gas pumping through the Nord Stream 1 gas pipeline," unquote. China says it has criticized sanctions imposed on Russia over its military operation against Ukraine as harmful to all sides. In a video summit with French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, China has largely backed Russia in blaming the US and its allies for provoking the conflict and has abstained in votes at the United Nations over whether to condemn Moscow for its action. In its readout of Tuesday conversation, Chinese state broadcast CCTV said that Xi expressed anxiety and deep pain over the fighting and urged the sides to pursue peace talks in which he said China was willing to play a role. British Prime Minister said that United Kingdom will move away from dependence on Russian oil by the end of 2022. Let's have a listen.
We must do everything we can to protect consumers and the public. There are going to be impacts. Let's be in no doubt there are going to be impacts. But I think that it's the right thing to do. But we've got to, and it's the right thing. It's completely the right thing to do to move away from Russian hydrocarbons, from dependence on Russian hydrocarbons. But we've got to do it step by step. So far, the success of the West has been in the unity that we've shown. I think we're all increasingly united in the view that we've got to move away now from Russian hydrocarbons. We've got to do it together. We've got to make sure that we have substitute and substitute supply, and that's what we're working on as well.
India is the only major US ally that has neither condemned Russia's invasion of Ukraine in clear terms nor backed sanctions against the country. Upsetting many of its Western allies, it's abstained from recent UN Security Council and General Assembly votes on Russia-Ukraine situation, arguing that sanctions are not a solution, but that the two warring sides should go back to the talking table. As Russia is facing unprecedented sanctions from the West, a huge number of corporations and businesses are suspending their operations in Russia or making plans to do so, piling on the pressure from McDonald's, Coca-Cola to Apple, Disney and TikTok. Top brands and industries leaders are cutting ties with Russia following Russian military Ukraine operation in Ukraine. Hussein Burkan on Watch Follow.
Major international companies in various sectors around the world announced the suspension of their activities in Russia due to its military intervention in Ukraine. During the past week, many sectors in Russia witnessed decisions to suspend or cancel the business of many companies in the sector of technology, automobiles, energy, and others. Companies are trying to put pressure on the Russian economy through their actions, aside from sanctions imposed by the European Union and the United States. After Starbucks, Coca-Cola, Pepsi Corporation, and General Electric, McDonald's announced that it will temporarily close its restaurants in Russia due to the Russian military operation in Ukraine. McDonald's will stop its operations and close all 850 of its restaurants in Russia.
We decided to temporarily close all of our restaurants in Russia and temporarily halt all markets operations. Closing these stores for now is the right thing to do. The company will continue to pay the salaries of its 62,000 employees in Russia who worked with their hearts and souls at McDonald's.
The McDonald's and Coca-Cola boycott hashtag had a great deal of interaction on social media and were the most popular on Twitter in America over the weekend and Monday, respectively. Dozens of prominent companies have suspended their operations or services in Russia amid heavy sanctions imposed by Western countries.
Russia's central bank has sharply tightened currency restriction amid Western economic sanctions against Moscow. The bank ordered the country's commercial bank to limit the amount clients can withdraw from their hard currency deposits at 10,000. Any withdrawals above the amount would be converted to ruble at the current exchange rate. Now moving to the topic of the news next, Igor Konchakov, a spokesperson for the Russian Ministry of Defense, stated on Wednesday that 498 Russian military members have died and 1,597 have been injured since the military operation began. Ukrainian officials have acknowledged their own casualties, but they believe Russian casualties are significantly higher. And now for more international news. Let's follow this roundup by Zahra Farjani.
Floods that have hit the east coast of Australia for a week have killed 20 people. Authorities announced on Tuesday after the bodies of a woman and a man were discovered in Sydney, where tens of thousands of people must evacuate. The bodies found are said to be of those who have been wanted since their car was found in the middle of floodwaters, according to police. South Koreans went to the polls on Wednesday to elect a new president who will shape Asia's fourth largest economy, driven by gender and generational divides. The campaign was marked by surprises and scandals, but the policy stakes are high for the country's 52 million residents and whoever they elect to be president for the next 5 years. Thousands of women took to the streets in Latin America on Tuesday, demanding an end to gender-based killing they say are rooted in their culture and urging the government to do more to protect them. The protest held on International Women's Day focused on femicide, a term used to describe the killing of women because of their gender. A Texas man was convicted on Tuesday of storming the U.S. Capitol with a holstered handgun, a milestone victory for Federation prosecutors in the first trial among hundreds of cases arising from last year's riot. The U.S. jury on Tuesday also convicted Guy Wesley Reffitt of interfering with police officers who were guarding the Capitol on January 6, 2021, and of obstructing justice for threatening his 2 teenage children if they reported him to law enforcement after the attack.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. much more information in the next bulletin. Thank you so much and have a blessed evening.